Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Subspace Developer Sync for this week. We're going to go around the table and get updates from everybody on what they've been working on and what their next priorities are. So to start off with, we are going to go through the core protocol. Nazar, if you would like to go first, please.
Of course. So last week we didn't have a lot of new development, so to speak, like new features. The only major one was from Ivan, which he'll talk about. Otherwise, we were just polishing what we had and preparing for the launch of Gemini 2a. Specifically, we removed some of the migration code, some of the legacy stuff, and prepared the new chain spec. The build for the Gemini 2a will be available either today or tomorrow, before the launch party for sure. And we already have all the infrastructure prepared, history seeded and everything. So we are in a pretty good shape to launch tomorrow. A lot of the work was done by Vad on the infrastructure side, but he's not here on this call. So shout out to him. And yeah, this week we'll see how the stress test goes and we'll go from there.
Great, thank you, Nazar. Any questions from the group? All right, Ivan, you're up next.
Yeah, sure. So last week, we finally migrated to the party DB, which we had some issues like today with that. Which we discovered. Apart from that, we also removed some legacy code related to multi-platforming. We finally switched to new version made by Nazar. Apart from that, today, I was reading the. I was actually looking at the RTDB issue related to the memory usage. So yeah, I basically confirmed that that is totally the issue. And I was looking for a code. Basically, if it had some big commits or like some other stuff. Have no clue right now about that, but we'll still look at that today and tomorrow. Before the launch party. I guess we can either fix that or just roll back to the RocksDB for now. That's all on my end.
Can you expand a little bit on how the issue is presenting itself?
We just right now the farmer can use up to like 6 gigabytes of RAM, like for our at least stress test setup. At least it was like that for me. The memory usage just spiked at some moments. That's how it looks.
Is that during recommitment or just the regular search process?
At first I thought that it is related to recommitments, but actually no. It stays the same like after the recommitments themselves.
Okay.
Also, it seems that the issue is not in the memory pre-allocation, as I limited the memory usage for the process, and it just ran out of memory and exited. So that is unfortunate.
Okay, let's discuss more on the core protocol sync after this. All right. Any other questions for Ivan? All right, Shamil, you're up next.
Sure. Last week I worked on the DSM v1 description. I finished 2 revisions of it, and I will continue with it this week probably. That's it.
Shamil, is it at a point where I can review it yet, or are you still working on it?
I believe, yes, you can do another one.
Okay. Yeah, just whenever you get to a point like that, just share it with me in the public Slack.
Yes, I was going to do after that because I finished 15 minutes ago.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And then we should probably set a time to go through that today or tomorrow. And
sure, today will be a good time, if you have time, of course.
Okay, we'll talk about that in the next sync. All right, any questions for Shamil? All right. Moving on to the domains and the execution layer. I don't have any major updates on that. On my side, I can cover VED's updates a little bit. Basically, I've just had some discussions with VED and Lu Chang just to make sure that we're up to speed on the understanding and the requirements, but I haven't actually produced any new documents myself for anything or updated any specifications. Lu Chang, you want to go next?
Yeah, of course. So last week, I fixed an executor test due to the force sync change in sync state. With the help from Nazar, I finally was able to sync my node to the tape of the current pre-stressed testnet, basically like making the block response limit smaller and the benefit of having more pairs. On the domain side, the first review on the reverse domain has been done with Gemini. Based on that, I made the first version of the domain template doc. Furthermore, I also revised the executor registry part in namespace execution spec. And also I revised the palette executor registry design doc. I also worked on palette domain registry a bit. Going forward this week, after the integration sync tomorrow with Gemma, I would just like to build to another iteration on the stocks and hope we can finish some like loose ends and are able to make some progress on the implementation plan. Yeah, that's my updates.
Thank you, Lu Chang. Regarding VED's update, at least as it relates to domains, he had been working on the palette messenger spec, which is just going to be a generic palette that's going to exist in every domain, every core domain at least, to allow them to communicate with each other. And there were some open questions around that. We had a long discussion last week and we were able to sort out all of those open questions. He was working on revising that palette design doc and also updating the messaging specification to reflect that. But he was traveling last week and then he got COVID. And he was also working on some of the infrastructure stuff as well. So I think probably hasn't made much progress in any of that, but that's going to be the goal this week. Basically, to summarize kind of where we're at with domains, we have drafts of basically all of the different core components of the first sort of the minimal viable architecture. We're in the process of going through and revising those, kind of making sure they all fit back together. It's kind of like we started with a top down, went all the way to the bottom, and now we're working our way from the bottom back up to the top, and making sure it all fits together right. So our goal is going to be to have a kind of like a version 1, you could say, of the design and the plan by the end of this week, and then start with the actual implementation, hopefully next week. Any questions about domains or execution layer or messaging? Okay. Nazar, can you just give a quick update on VED for the infrastructure side, what he was working on there?
Yeah, so we had a bunch of bare metal machines that we had for Gemini 1B. We have basically replaced all of those, replaced software on all of those but one with the Gemini 2A, and we have added a bunch of other machines in other regions. And we have like 35 nodes already running, and that should be sufficient for network to bootstrap because everyone will share data with everyone. So I think we are in a pretty good shape. There was a small accident there. We have actually wiped all of the Gemini 1B machines. And then we noticed that we have none and our PC is not working. But turns out we didn't wipe the volumes. So we just restored one of them back into working state. So yeah, Gemini 1B is basically in maintenance mode just for like browsing purposes now.
Great, thank you, Nazar. Okay, moving on to the product team. So Arthur's out today. I can try to give an update on his part. I guess we can go through the team first. Let's see, Serge, do you want to start off?
Sure. So on Subspace desktop, nothing very significant. There was a minor PR to add documentation generation for the front end. So we previously had like a code inline code comments, but I added an npm script so we can generate like HTML pages. And yeah, looking forward to security audit. And Subspace JS, there was another minor PR to update examples. And most of the time I was working on telemetry together with Arthur and Daniel. So there was one PR to address rendering performance, specifically sorting of nodes. When you have this list, if you have like 50,000, rendering performance is not that great because we sort all the nodes on every update. So I changed the code, so now we sort on every block. So basically around every 6 seconds, and it works much better. And I also talked with Nazar about the deployment of the telemetry, and we are actually already deploying the version with our updates. And currently I'm working on the, we have an issue to update the map page because currently telemetry shows individual nodes on the map, and with our like potential quantity, it's not very, it won't render all like 50,000, let's say, nodes. So currently there is a limitation on 1,300 nodes. But currently I'm working on the grouping nodes by location, and we will have like bigger dots if we have like more than one, let's say, nodes in particular location. So there are still some issues to clarify in terms of UI with Arthur. But yeah, there is some progress there. And yeah, there was also idea to, currently we're testing, stress testing by cloning nodes on the front end. But in the future, I would like to clone nodes on the back end so we can test like the whole, like to have more realistic setup to clone them on the Rust side. So I might need some help. Maybe I will annoy someone from the protocol team. That's all.
I have a few questions, comments about that. So about cloning, you probably can write something like Rust or Node application. Just connect your WebSockets to push messages, so you can like pretend to be a lot of nodes. So you can test the whole workflow from like shards to core to aggregation to everything, instead of just like sending duplicated messages on the backend. So you can like see if the backend crashes before front end crashes, for instance, if you have a lot of nodes.
Okay, I will ask something later.
Yeah, yeah. Then on the map side, I'm not sure if that's acceptable for the upstream, though it seems useful. However, on the sorting side, I think it can be upstreamable, right? It's just generic improvement. So maybe create issues in upstream repository to see like what they think about these things. It would be ideal if we can at least get a response from them. And maybe like at a later date you can contribute back.
That overrides the default behavior, because by default it sorts nodes on every update, almost every update.
Yeah, but okay, but just try to write to them like this is the bottleneck in this situation. Like, would you consider some improvements? Maybe they can like store it in sorted form, so you don't have to resort it all the time, like some kind of binary search tree or something. Just a thought. Just try to communicate to them. Maybe they will do some improvements for us.
Yeah, I will think how to make it like configurable.
Okay, thanks for the update, Serge. So yeah, I think if you're looking for help, Ivan, when he has some free time, is probably a good person to help you with some of that Rust backend script stuff. And it would be ideal if we could get some of these changes merged into the telemetry upstream. However, for this week, at least, the priority is just going to be to get it to work. and then later, once we confirm that it actually does work and that it solves our problem, then we can figure out how to get that incorporated or how to architect that in such a way that they'll incorporate it upstream.
Just to start the conversation, like not contribute actually.
Okay, sure, yeah. Okay, Serge. So if I understand correctly, you're saying like right now on Gemini 2 stress test network, we can support 50,000 nodes with the current telemetry. That's what we've tested it up to.
Well, currently we were testing by cloning nodes on the front end. So just to be sure, I want to test by cloning nodes like.
Sure, I understand it's not a perfect test, but our guess is that it should work.
Rendering should work.
Rendering will work. Backend will almost certainly not be able to send it to render. So.
Okay, so we haven't fixed the problem. We just fixed the front end to be able to render it.
The front end improvement is great, but one of the bottlenecks was basically you have certain number of updates happening on the backend. They are delivered to the front end to render, but backend wasn't able to send them in real time. So it just creates a backlog, and then when the buffer is exceeded, it just drops connection. So that's what we've seen with a lot of forks, for instance, when there are a lot of updates. It may be less of a problem when we don't have those forks, but still there is like some kind of limit that we cannot send more data than that. That's why we are talking about aggregation.
So maybe we should prioritize like adding a database and some other updates that I was mentioning in the conversation with you earlier.
I mean, there is a limit of what you can send, and unless like user wants to see their node and we implement sort like filtering on the backend, or we only show like aggregated map and aggregated statistics without the whole list, like there is no way we can like send everything. We just need
we're not planning to show the whole list. We were just planning to show the aggregates. That was one of the requirements for this. I guess, are we still trying to like make this work so that we can show the list?
Yeah, we're showing list. Because if we hide everything and just show aggregated, there will be like just one row on top, and nothing else.
Yeah, that's all we need actually. That was the plan.
Not necessarily. So we have that row on the top with the summary, but there is also like statistics page or something like that has like aggregated information. So that page can still be available and made the default.
Okay.
So it's not empty.
Okay, cool. So let's, Serge, let's continue to make this your priority up for tomorrow to see what we can do. And we can discuss this on the app sync more tomorrow. But the original plan was actually, there was sort of like you could say like the worst case scenario was just to render the aggregate data and just forget about the list. That's like a nice to have feature to be able to render the list, but we need to, up to 100K nodes be able to show the aggregate data as soon as possible.
Yeah, we actually have this implemented last week. So we have a property that we can like turn off the list if there are some rendering issues, and we can make it like environmental variable or something, so we can just redeploy pretty fast.
Okay, but backend will still send the data, right?
Yes.
Then we need to make the backend not send the data as well, or like make it configurable from the front end, like a query parameter or something. Otherwise, it will drop connection still.
Okay, sounds like we need to have some more discussion on this, but I'm glad that we're getting closer to figuring out what the issue is. It's great progress. So thanks for working on this, Serge. Okay, anything else, Serge, or any questions for Serge from the group? Okay, Özgen, you're up next.
Hi, not that much exciting news, but everything is in order, which is good news. Rotating logs PR was outdated and had conflicts. I fixed them, and then it merged into main. Then we had many other PRs merged into main because we fixed that Windows certificate bug last week. And then I merged main into our branch of Lambda 2513, which is for this pre-stress testnet. And I tested it again. It is working on macOS. I was able to sync fully and farm blocks. Other than that, cleaned the repo for everything. Like since we are putting a break on the desktop development. Now all the unnecessary branches are gone from the repo. Surge had a PR request, and in that PR, the workflow was not working for the documentation search. And the reason for that is Tauri. We had to update the Tauri in short, and when updating the Tauri, our icons again created some issue. I fixed that, and now everything is working. We are ready to take a break from that, I believe. I had some questions about the testing because we still haven't tested on Linux and Windows, but I was thinking of discussing it with Arthur. If he is coming back tomorrow, I can have a chat with him. So that's all on my end. And on my free time, I started on the resources you put on the Notion, Jeremiah.
Thanks, Özkan. Nazar, did you have some comments?
No.
Oh, okay. I just saw a reaction from you at some point. Okay. Great. Thanks, Özkan, for those updates. And yeah, feel free to reach out to Arthur over Slack or whatever for the testing questions. I do have some more materials actually for you to look at. I was able to go through and do some research myself on that this weekend and have some more stuff. So I'll share that with you afterwards. Just to recap some of the things from Arthur that we talked about last week. So obviously telemetry is a big deal. So we're going to be trying to get that resolved by tomorrow, definitely by the end of the week. We have the desktop audit starting on Thursday. So we're freezing all the code for that. We also have the sub wallet integration. Nazar, have we been able to pass off the RPC network info to them so that they can get compatibility with stress test?
I believe I sent it to or like replied to Arthur. So I think they should have it. And those are already live. So we should be good. If not,
Okay,
let me know.
great.
I will send them.
Okay, awesome. Okay. And then the other thing we were working on was Subscan. We are going to be starting, I think, this week with them for the integration on the Block Explorer. We should have that in roughly 2 weeks, but we did have a chance to sync up with them last week. And then the last thing is the wrapper CLI. Arthur and I had a design discussion about that at the end of last week. We're going to continue that design discussion. We're probably going to bring you into that, Özkan, this week, but more info on when that will be tomorrow. Okay, any other questions about product related stuff? Okay. All right, next up is R&D. Daria, I'll let you go first.
So we have had several hours of discussions with Nazar and Jeremiah about improvements and updates to the core protocol, which I am still working on writing down. We had a shorter discussion with Shamil about sync, but that was deprioritized from my side until Shamil finishes it and until I finish with the protocol updates. And today I have been trying to nail down the way we could use vector commitments to have shorter inclusion witnesses. I feel like I'm onto something, but I will share with you once I'm done.
Great, thank you, Daria. Any questions from the group? Okay. Just to summarize a little bit on R&D, so we're trying to get this V2 consensus spec done. We pretty much locked in the design. We're just formalizing it. And then Shamil is working on documenting V1 of the DSN, and then we're going to be working hopefully by the end of this week on V2 spec for the DSN, which is going to align with the V2 consensus spec. I spent a lot of time this last weekend working on data availability sampling research and trying to understand how erasure coding and KZG commitments fit together in that respect. basically what we're trying to do is make the archiving process, which is bottlenecked by a single node and done by farmers, we're trying to make that into a distributed job, which all the farmers can share in a secure way, and then make that sampleable. And this kind of all fits together with the DSN and with consensus and with scalability. It kind of all ties together in different ways. So it's a very important piece of what we're doing. Basically had like one of these breakthroughs where everything makes sense mathematically, and it's kind of like, oh. Luckily, things are starting to fit together, and I will be talking with different people about that. So that's kind of impact really Nazar, Daria, Oskin, and Shamil all in different ways as it relates to the protocol. So we'll be discussing that this week, and hopefully kind of tying that all back together. Okay, any questions for me? All right, Justin, since you're here, do you have any updates that you wanted to give from the community side or support side?
Yeah, just on my end, I've been prioritizing, preparing for the stress test and the incentivized testnet coming up. Mostly that's just consisting of obviously documentation updates for the new versions. We've been rolling out localization on our website to try and reach more of a global community. So here shortly, we will be adding Turkish, Vietnamese, and Ukrainian. And we already have Russian and Chinese live, and also working on bringing in some more community moderators to help with the anticipated increased workload as well on some of those global channels. And also we have office hours this week, so preparing for that. We should have an agenda out today for the community and for anyone who will be visiting.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have, so Subspace Desktop is scrubbed from the docs now, right?
Yes, I just need to merge the PR once I get I just need the bootstrap information for the new commands from Unizar, like the new domains and such. Just the RPC connection. But once I merge that PR, it will be ready to go.
Okay, let's make sure that we have that merged by stress test start tomorrow. So let's make that a priority today to do that. And then do we have the sub wallet listed as the default wallet in the docs as well instead of Polkadot.js extension?
Correct.
Great. Great. Okay. Wonderful. All right. Anything else before we close out? All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the updates. Keep up the great work. We'll see everybody next week, and thanks everybody for watching.